This committee is now back in order. Our next and last order of business for the day is Senate File 2045. Senator Rest, to your bill, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate File 2045 is named the Equal Access to Broadband Act in the language. And I'll just briefly, if I may, just tell you what's in each section, what is before us. And then I have two witnesses that we'd ask to come forward and testify for the in favor of the bill. We are looking for a way to provide sustainable funding for quality community television, which in my own area is superb community television in terms of its quality. And I am fortunate that CCX covers all of my constituents, my whole district. Every community in my district is reached by them. Section 1 is a definitional section, and it modifies the definition of broadband to make sure that it offers a person or a company high-speed internet and removes references to telecommunications capability. Sections 2 and 3 are also definitional sections. Section 4 subjects local governments, franchising, or other municipal authorization to be coordinated with relevant local government units to minimize potential future relocations. Section 5 allows for a local franchising authority to require a broadband provider to comply with terms under the relevant regulation. Section 6 includes broadband as one of the many services subject to municipal franchising or other municipal authorized requirements, including local regulations. Section 7 discusses right-of-way, the right-of-way definition, and clarifies that telecommunications service does not include cable service or broadband service. Section 8, telecommunications right-of-way users are authorized to conduct business under state law or by the FCC license to operate above and under public rights-of-way. Section 9 outlines how a local government may recover its management costs through fees for registrations, permits, and et cetera. Section 10 addresses additional right-of-way provision, and it specifically prohibits unlawful discrimination and preference to users and erecting an unreasonable requirement for entry. And it deletes previous language that was it's in statute to fees. And then Section 11 grants powers to change and alter public ways and grounds, and with the power to franchise occupants and users of public rights-of-way to receive compensation and regulate streets and other public grounds. Minnesota has been a leader in franchising, starting with the 1973 Minnesota Cable Act, which was later used as a model for the Federal Cable Act in 1984. It was the original equal access law, ensuring the same level of cable service would be available to all residents of a city. And we believe it is now time to refresh the franchising law in Minnesota. It will allow cities to continue to receive other public benefits such as access television. This is a bill that is simple in concept, but the language is very technical. And with regard to questions on the technicalities in the language, please ask either the testifiers and/or Senate Counsel. So the goal of this bill is to ensure equal access to broadband to the maximum extent possible, Mr. Chairman and members, and I appreciate your willingness to begin the conversation about equal access to broadband. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Rest. Mr. Bradley and Mr. Callister, if you'll both please come to the desk. If you'd state your full name for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Senator Rest. Thank you, Chair Putman and committee members. My name is Michael Bradley. I am a partner in the law firm of Bradley Werner. We're a firm that represents local governments throughout Minnesota and the country. The Equal Access to Broadband Act recognizes that it's time to refresh the state's local franchising laws. Cable franchising has been successful, but I think we all recognize that broadband is the future in communications, which is why the refresh is needed. A core principle of franchising is the public rights of way is a scarce public resource, and it is a valuable privilege for a limited number of private companies to use for the delivery of communication services to residents. As such, we believe it is bad public policy to give away public property and good public policy to require a fee in exchange for the valuable privilege. Franchising recognizes the importance of getting all of our residents served, which is with the same quality of service throughout our areas. And cable franchising did just that, and it's a good model. We should recognize the need for long-term protections of our residents, particularly at a time of historic public investment in broadband. The state will be giving $650 million in grants. It's also a time when the broadband industry is seeking tax relief, sales tax relief, and relief from safety standards. That's a lot of asks with not a lot of protections. This bill also recognizes, as Senator Rest says, that franchising brings public benefits such as access television, which is very important. For those concerned with ensuring affordable broadband, please know we are willing to work on effective solutions to ensure broadband is affordable to all residents, especially those in need. We do not expect franchising to slow down deployment of broadband in Minnesota. Obviously, cable franchising was very successful in ensuring widespread deployment. That said, we are committed to developing a model franchise by the effective date of this legislation to ensure there are no delays in construction. The goal of equal access to broadband is not partisan. It's not controversial. The way to achieve it is through a proven method, and that's franchising. We thank the chair for hearing this bill and Senator Rest for her leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Mr. Callister, if you would please state your full name for the record and commence your testimony when you're ready.
Mr. Chair and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. For the record, my name is Dave Callister, and I am the city manager for the city of Plymouth. I'm pleased to be here today to testify in support of Senate File 2045, the Equal Access to Broadband Act. This bill is important to cities. It will allow for local franchising, which will help prevent digital discrimination by broadband companies and will enhance digital opportunities for all residents. Cities know the value residents put on broadband and the expectation that they have the same quality of service no matter where they live. Through cable franchising, we have protected consumers and have required uniform delivery of cable services to our residents. As more people make the switch from cable subscription to streaming services, it is imperative that we advocate for residents to have similar protections. Broadband franchising will replicate the success of cable franchising, ensuring consumer protections, equal access to the same quality of services, and the continued provision of important public benefits. Broadband fiber optic internet installation is underway in Plymouth. Several companies have completed installations in selected areas, but only one company has completed citywide installation. So Plymouth residents are at the mercy of one company to provide broadband services. Without franchising, there's no guarantee of equitable build-out or uniform quality of services to all residents. It should be noted that the use and occupancy of the public right-of-way is a scarce and valuable resource that is made available to private communications and utility companies to operate their businesses. The value of this privilege is not declining, but I can tell you that the shift from cable services to broadband services is resulting in an increased burden on the rights-of-way and a decline in franchise fee revenue. Local media, such as the programming and content produced by CCX Media, is essential to maintaining an informed and civilly engaged community. Thanks to CCX Media, residents in 9 Northwest metro cities have access to city council meetings, coverage of community events, local news, high school sports, and other pertinent community programming. And in addition to the cable channels, this programming is available for free online and through a variety of streaming services. This is particularly important at a time when many local newspapers are reducing circulation by charging subscriptions or simply shutting down. To provide transparency and to ensure communications to our residents, we need to adapt and find a solution. The Equal Access to Broadband Act will modernize franchising to allow cities to franchise broadband companies to ensure all residents have equal access to the same quality of broadband service no matter where they live. It will also continue to provide public benefits, such as local media and other programs to promote digital equity and civic engagement for our residents. We enthusiastically support Senate File 2045 and ask you to adopt this legislation. Thank you to Senator Rest and for the leadership in moving this legislation forward and for the opportunity to testify today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Callister. We do have 2 other folks signed up to testify, but only seeing one of them here. Brent's online. Ms. Wolf, if you would, please.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. For the record, my name is Melissa Wolf, and I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Cable Communications Association, or Minnesota Cable. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Minnesota Cable represents cable companies who are proud to serve residents of Minnesota in every corner of the state, from Schoberg's and Thief River Falls, SCI and Hinckley to Midco and Fairmont. Collectively, Minnesota Cable companies provide high-speed, reliable broadband access to over 1.5 million residents in the metro, suburbs, and rural Minnesota. Everyone in this room understands that reliable, high-speed internet has become an essential service in modern society, and Minnesota is on the verge of achieving universal broadband access. Senate File 2045 would stop Minnesota's progress towards universal broadband dead in our tracks and make broadband more expensive for the citizens of this state. The bill authorizes a new 8% local tax on broadband and broadband-enabled services. This bill was touted as the Equal Access to Broadband Act, but none of the hundreds of millions of dollars that would be raised by this new broadband tax would further any cause that makes broadband more affordable or accessible. 5% would go to local governmental general funds, 3% would be dedicated to public educational and governmental, or PEG, access television programmers. At a time when consumers' concerns about inflation are sky high, all this bill does is increase the cost of a basic necessity for consumers. The combined stacking effect of these new local broadband taxes will result in cost increases passed on to consumers on multiple services. These would be regressive taxes hitting low-income rural households and young consumers the hardest. After Congress failed to renew the Affordable Connectivity Program, or ACP, last year, other states are looking for ways to keep internet access more affordable. Minnesota is the only state looking to increase the cost of internet service. As both testifiers just mentioned, Minnesota Cable members must already obtain a cable franchise and pay franchise and PEG fees that support PEG access programming, and we are proud to do so. In 2023 alone, Minnesota Cable members paid over $45 million in cable franchise and PEG fees to communities across the state. The bill violates federal laws and FCC rules prohibiting local governments from assessing duplicative franchise fees and from regulating cable broadband services. Courts have struck down local governmental attempts to franchise cable broadband services. In addition, the National League of Cities and the National Association of Telecommunications Officers and Advisors have made attempts to overturn this rule at the FCC and in Congress and have gained no traction. In short, requiring franchised cable video providers to obtain a separate broadband franchise is illegal under federal law. Lastly, lawmakers in the Minnesota House of Representatives last year removed this bill from the Commerce Omnibus Bill on the House floor, citing that it was not ready for prime time. This bill was not ready last year, and it's not ready this year. Minnesota has long been a leader in broadband deployment and accessibility. This bill takes us backwards. Minnesota should be finishing the job of achieving universal, affordable broadband, not halting broadband deployment and widening the digital divide. Thank you for the opportunity, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. I see Mr. Christensen is actually online. If you could, Mr. Christensen, please unmute your microphone, state your full name for the record, and commence your testimony when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, good afternoon. For the record, my name is Brent Christensen. I'm the president and CEO of the Minnesota Telecom Alliance, or MTA. The MTA is a mix of cooperatives, family-owned, privately held, and publicly traded broadband providers throughout Minnesota. In addition to broadband, MTA members provide traditional landline telephone service and broadcast television, which you may know as cable TV. I'm here in opposition to Senate File 2045. And that said, I completely understand the proponents of the bill's position. They are losing PEG fee revenue at an ever-increasing rate. In addition, as a former mayor, I understand the desire to take control of something as important as broadband in your community. Cable TV franchise fees are decreasing as people cut the cable cord. MTA members who offer broadcast television service are seeing this happen almost as fast as consumers are cutting their landline telephone service. A few of my members are actually getting out of the broadcast TV business after decades of service. And while adding a new tax or fee to broadband subscribers will help cities, it's counterproductive to the state's goal of border-to-border broadband. Municipalities need to get creative, just like we did in the private sector, whether it's selling ads or putting commercials on city council meetings or whatever it takes. And I used to brag when I was the mayor that our city council meetings were the highest rated TV show in our time slot, except during Monday Night Football. While I understand the desire to control the deployment of broadband in the community, there is no way that we can make that work when we have a state office of broadband development. The reason that we have cable franchises is because there is no state cable office. So it's done at the local level. Broadband is done at the state level. Individual municipal franchises will add more work on the Office of Broadband Development, who's working diligently with providers in the federal government to ensure that all Minnesotans will have access to quality broadband. Finally, Mr. Chair, the added fee on consumers' bills will tip the affordability scale in the wrong direction, and affordability is just as important as access. Broadband subscribers should not have to foot the bill for cable TV programming. That just doesn't make sense. I ask that you oppose this bill, and with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen. Members, questions, comments? Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Rest, I'm not sure who would be able to answer this. I'll ask you. If this bill passes, will that have any impact on the federal BEAD funds that we've already received from that the states already received to expand broadband?
Senator Rest, it looks like Mr. Bradley would like to handle that question for you, if that's acceptable.
Fine.
Mr. Bradley?
Mr. Chair and Senator, no. It'll have no impact on the BEAD funding.
And will, Mr. Chair,
Senator Dames.
will the $650 million of grants you're talking about coming to Minnesota, will this affect those in any way?
Mr. Bradley.
Mr. Chair and Senator, no.
Senator Dames.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you.
Members, any other questions, comments? Senator Rest, do you have any closing statement you'd like to make?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. I have a long history of, very long history of David versus Goliath with regard to cable companies. I don't know if I'm going to win this one, but I certainly won the first one. We woke up one morning and saw off of our deck this hanging wire. And we said, what in the world is that? And it turned out that the cable companies wanted to string their wire from telephone poles that were, because we were on water, they were close up to the house. And we organized our neighborhoods, and approach the cable access company or organization and said, these wires need to be buried. And of course, the cable company said, oh, no, no, no. They're on NSP at the time. They're on their poles, and we can use their poles. And so we went down to Hennepin County, the property tax records, went over every single house that was on that route, and guess what we found? One of them did not have an easement. And so that homeowner said to the cable company, I'm sorry, you can't put your wires across our property because NSP doesn't have that easement here. And guess who won? Cable was buried along our property and our whole neighborhoods, and we did not have those hanging wires 5 feet away from our decks. And just another comment. I can't imagine anybody coming into the Senate and saying what good things, quite frankly, with all due respect to them, ever happen in the House of Representatives. So that's my final comment. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members, for your indulgence.
Thank you very much, Senator Rest. I will say, take a moment of sort of chair's privilege to say that it's hard for me not to see you as a Goliath in virtually any circumstances, and I wasn't surprised that you won it all. Senate File 2045 will be laid over for possible inclusion. Thank you, Senator Rest. All right, folks. Hey, thanks for hanging out this Friday. It looks like we're all done with our business for the day. We do have a very busy full day on Monday. It is that time of year. But have a great weekend. We'll see you then. We are now adjourned.